Well, ladies and gentlemen, the first two rounds are done, and everybody is already eliminated from having a perfect bracket. There's zero perfect brackets left, and so we're going to be doing the second chance. The first thing I'm going to be doing is going over my bracket. Believe it or not, the analytics bracket is outperforming my personal bracket. It's got the percentile at 82.5%. My personal bracket was in the 96th percentile, and then last night, there were some games that happened that really affected it. But guys, we know the deal with this tournament. It is very chalky, and it's just going to come down to, did you have the national championship winner right or not? If Houston wins, my bracket is going to be 98th, 99th percentile. If they don't, and maybe they make the championship, it'll be like 92nd, 93rd. But because of the multiplier, the points multiplier for the Elite Eight, and then they multiply again for the Final Four, and then they multiply again for the national championship game, and then they multiply again for whoever wins the national championship game, it is very chalky. There's going to be a bunch of one seeds, and it's going to come down to whoever predicted the one seed to beat another one seed, like whether it's Houston over Duke, Auburn over, at this point, Texas Tech is still in. And for me, it would be a big boom if Texas Tech was able to make the Final Four. I do have all of my Final Four teams still remaining. I do also, I believe, have all of my elite, well, maybe not all my Elite Eight teams, but you can see my elite, I do have Texas Tech over Florida. So that would be Texas Tech beating Arkansas and then Florida beating Maryland. And then I also have Houston over Tennessee, so that would be Houston beating Purdue. How about Houston? What a performance against Gonzaga. That game really wasn't that close. Gonzaga made a late comeback. Remember, everyone was saying, oh, Houston's going to lose in the second round because Gonzaga is really good. This is a good Houston team. Now they've got a nice match against Purdue. They're like, 8.9-point favorites. They're going to win that game. And then unfortunately, this was a game to where I lost some points because I had Illinois beating Kentucky. That would have been a minor upset and didn't happen. But as long as Tennessee wins, I'll have both of those teams into the Elite Eight. And then looking up here, I correctly predicted the Alabama versus BYU matchup. I had Wisconsin losing to Montana. That didn't happen, but they did lose to BYU. And then I do have Alabama beating BYU. I feel pretty confident about that. And in this matchup, I had Duke over Akron. Oh, yeah, I predicted Akron to go on a Cinderella run. That didn't even come close to happening. Dude, there were no upsets. No 13 seeds won. No 14 seeds. And by the way, these games really weren't even that close. Like, this is a 30-point game, 4v13. A&M, Yale, you could argue, 9-point game. But it was really, people were talking about Lipscomb, not a chance. Not a chance for Montana. Like, this is brutal. Robert Morris only lost by 9, which was pretty shocking because I thought they would get destroyed by Alabama. But it is crazy. Like, Maryland annihilated Grand Canyon. A lot of people are high on Maryland. They could have very easily lost to Colorado State. But the point of it is, I believe I pretty much have all of my Elite Eight still remaining. So if Auburn wins, that's an Elite Eight team for me. Oh, you know what? No, I have 7 of the 8 because I had Iowa State. Iowa State lost to Ole Miss. Yeah, this bottom area, this quadrant, I did terrible in because I had Marquette beating New Mexico and then beating Michigan State. None of that happened. So I could get 7 of the 8, and then all my Final Four teams are still left. The one upset would be like Texas Tech making the Final Four as a 3 seed, but I have the other 3 1 seeds. It's just very chalky. But guys, let's get to my actual second chance bracket. So we begin in the South. These are Sweet 16 games. This game, 9:39 start time, so later game. It is Auburn taking on Michigan. I'm going to go Auburn. There's really no reason for me not to. Michigan, I thought Michigan had a really good draw. I had Michigan correctly into the Sweet 16 because they just had a good draw. UC San Diego, they won that game barely, but they were winning the entire time. And then I thought A&M was a weak 4 seed. Ole Miss taking on Michigan State. Wow, how about a Michigan versus Michigan State matchup if that happened? I don't think it's going to. To me, this could go either way. It's like 50. I'll go Michigan State. I'll go 1-2. I might change that. We'll have to see however the seed's set up, but I'll go Michigan State. I'm not high on Michigan State as a 2 seed, but over Ole Miss, I could see them beating Ole Miss. Duke versus Arizona, you got to go Duke. You have to beat Arizona. And I had Arizona losing in the first round. It didn't happen. I was not high on Oregon, though. I said Oregon was going to beat Liberty, but then lose in the second round to Akron in an upset. And they lost in the second round to Arizona instead. BYU versus Alabama. Fun game, probably higher scoring. BYU, Bama. I don't want to keep picking the 1-2s. I might have to pick Excuse me. I'm going to have to pick Ole Miss here because I don't want 1-2, 1-2. So it's 1-6, 1-2. If you go Bama over BYU, I think Bama beats BYU. Like, in terms of a potential upset in this top area, to me, it would be Ole Miss over Michigan State, 6/2. Florida against Maryland. To me, I'm not going to say it's a 50-50 game. I think Florida's the favorite. But I will go Texas Tech because I did have them in the Final Four, and I like them over Arkansas. I think that's a good matchup for Texas Tech. Also, I think another relatively safe is Houston over Purdue. Kentucky, Tennessee, I'm going to still pick Tennessee. And then Florida, Maryland. You could argue maybe Maryland here over Florida. I mean, Florida had a close one with UConn. To me, I wonder what the spread is in this game. It's open 5.5. It's 6.5. 6.5 for Florida. Yeah, I'll go Florida. 1-3, 1-2 would be that matchup. I don't know why this is lagging. And then 1-2, 1-6. Okay, that's not terrible. I'm going to go Auburn to beat Ole Miss, though. I'll go Auburn. I'll go Duke. I mean, do I pick the exact same thing? See, this is the problem with the second chance bracket. You know what? You might want to change it up a little bit. Well, the thing is I can change it up in the national title game. Yeah, I could just change it up in the national title game. Florida, Texas Tech. I do like Houston. I'm going to have Houston going and then Texas Tech again. But the thing is, it's like I don't need a second chance because all my teams are still in. I'm not going to brag about it because everyone's teams are still in. We understand. It's very chalky, but I don't need a second chance. I don't even need a second chance. This is crazy. No, but in this one, we'll pick Duke to face Auburn, and then Duke wins. Just because, you know, we'll say this the total points is 1,600 now, 165, and then I'll go ahead and submit that. But yeah, just to recap this 25-point game, Michigan State. I mean, the 1v16 games were really bloody. They were real bad. People are saying it's because of NIL. I mean, that probably has something to do with it. It's all the good mid-major players getting poached by the upper programs to get paid more money. But this was the closest 1v16 game. It was a 20-point game. The Mount St. Mary's game. Oh, man. This one, the Edwardsville game. It's like a 40-point. They scored 40 total points. Florida versus Norfolk State. I think that was like a 30-point game in the first half. These games were trash. They seriously were. St. John's loses to Arkansas. That's the problem with St. John's. I only had St. John's into the Sweet 16 as a 2 seed, and the reason is because of just poor offense. They score 66 points. Man, even St. John's won that game by 30, that first round game. Yeah, so many of these first round games were bad. How about Utah State? I had Utah State winning. They scored 47 points. People were really high on UCLA after they destroyed Utah State, and then they lost to Tennessee. But, yeah, McNeese beats Clemson. You want to call that an upset? I mean, McNeese winning. I would say McNeese beating Clemson is probably in the first round the biggest upset. And it was a 7.5-point spread because Colorado State was 1.5-point favorites over Memphis. You could say Drake over Missouri. I think Missouri was like 6-point favorites over Drake. Yeah, the thing is I kept picking Drake because Drake has been making it recently as this mid-major, and they're always like 28-3 every year. They've got a really good record, and then they just lose in the first round every single time. So I said I'm done with it. I'm not picking them, and they end up winning. What are you gonna do? Gonzaga annihilated Georgia. Yeah, Gonzaga really shouldn't have been an 8 seed. It would have been better for Georgia to be a 10 rather than to face Gonzaga. But again, I mean, Houston had a very nice performance. Like, what is Houston? What is this? Oh, I didn't want to go to that. That's a 7.5-point spread. Yeah, I like Houston. I mean, and then if you're Houston, you'd probably rather face. Well, Kentucky's a dangerous team. I think Houston would do well against Tennessee. It's a good stylistic matchup. It's like Houston just does everything better than Tennessee. You can really slow the game down. Florida, Maryland, I think should be a really good game. To me, it's going to come down. My guess is Maryland will cover that 5.5 or that 6-point spread, whatever it ends up being. And then I do need Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech's around 5.5-point favorites. I mean, Duke has been. How about Duke? 23-point victory. I wonder what the spread is in this game. 9.5. Yeah, Duke is really good, and you know what? They got a really nice draw as well. That was a good game. Arizona over Oregon, Pac-12 matchup, right? But yeah, I mean, so like the thing is, when it comes to picking upsets, you do these videos. You need to be entertaining. Yes, I did pick Akron. I mean, but there's no Cinderella. So yeah, listen, you have to pick a Cinderella every year. That's the point. You've got to do it. It just has to be done. So if there's going to be no Cinderella, what am I going to do? But yeah, I did pick Akron over Arizona. I did pick Montana over Wisconsin. Those are two games that were not good. But other than that, I mean, it's fine. You know, I'll take the 70th percentile. It just comes down to if I have the final four teams, and really, if Houston wins, my bracket's going to be the 99 percentile. It's based off of the multiplier. That's kind of how it goes. Um. So yeah, guys, that's basically it, and that's gonna do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.